An 80,000-strong arena fell into complete silence when Michael Jackson collapsed to his knees on stage, tears streaming down his face. But what happened next would change everyone who witnessed it forever. The king of pop suddenly stopped mid-song, his voice cracking as he spotted something in the front row that shattered his heart. The music died. The dancers froze. And in that moment, the most famous performer on earth became just a man in pain. This is the story of a night when Michael Jackson chose humanity over showmanship, when he sang through agony that would have broken anyone else, and when he proved that sometimes the most powerful performance comes from the rawest truth. You're about to witness something that cameras barely captured, that the media never fully understood, and that changed Michael Jackson's approach to performing forever. But first, let me take you back to how this unforgettable night began. Munich, Germany. July 4, 1997. The History World Tour was at its peak, and Michael Jackson was performing to sold-out stadiums across Europe. The Olympiahalle was packed beyond capacity, with fans who had traveled from across the continent to see the king of pop perform his greatest hits. But this wasn't just any concert. Michael had been struggling with something deeply personal for weeks. His close friend and spiritual advisor, Rabbi Shmuley Batich, had been counseling him through a crisis of purpose. "What am I really doing up there?" Michael had confided. "Am I just entertaining, or am I healing?" That question would be answered in the most unexpected way. In the front row, pressed against the security barrier, sat 11-year-old Sarah Mueller with her parents. Sarah had been battling leukemia for 3 years. Her dream, her one wish through all the chemotherapy, the hospital stays, the sleepless nights, was to see Michael Jackson perform live. Her parents had spent their life savings on front-row tickets, knowing this might be their daughter's last chance. Sarah wore a handmade sign around her neck that simply read, "Michael, you saved my life." As Michael took the stage that night, he seemed different. Those close to him noticed he was more introspective, spending longer moments scanning the audience during songs. He was searching for something, though no one knew what. The show proceeded flawlessly through "Scream, They Don't Care About Us" and "Stranger in Moscow." Michael's performance was electric, his energy infectious. The crowd was in rapture, singing along to every word, matching his every move. Then came "Heal the World." As Michael began the opening verse, his eyes swept across the front rows as they always did. But then he saw her. Sarah Mueller, pale and fragile, clutching her sign with trembling hands, tears streaming down her face as she mouthed every word to his song. Michael Jackson stopped singing mid-sentence. The arena fell into dead silence. The backing track continued for a few beats before the sound engineers, confused, began to fade it out. The 80,000 people in attendance didn't understand what was happening. Was this part of the show? Had something gone wrong? Michael stood frozen center stage, staring at Sarah. His hands began to shake. Those in the pit could see his eyes welling up with tears. But here's the incredible part that no one expected. Instead of walking away, instead of regaining his composure and continuing the show, Michael Jackson did something that broke every rule of professional performance. He walked to the edge of the stage, sat down on the platform with his legs dangling over the side, and looked directly at Sarah. "What's your name, sweetheart?" he asked softly into his microphone. "Sarah," came the timid reply, amplified by the arena's acoustics. "Sarah," Michael repeated, his voice thick with emotion. "Can you sing with me?" What happened next was magic. Pure, unscripted magic. Michael began singing "Heal the World" again, but this time differently. Softer. More intimate. As if he was singing directly to one person instead of 80,000. Sarah joined in, her weak voice somehow carrying across the silent arena. The crowd didn't cheer. They didn't scream. They simply listened, witnessing something sacred unfolding before their eyes. Behind the scenes, the tour manager was frantically trying to understand what was happening. Security guards stood frozen, unsure whether to intervene. But Michael's longtime director, Kenny Ortega, whispered into his headset, "Let it happen. Don't touch anything. This is bigger than the show." Subscribe now and comment below. You're about to see the most heartbreaking part of this story. Michael continued singing, never breaking eye contact with Sarah. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his signature white sequined glove, the one he'd worn during Billie Jean on Motown 25, the one that had become his trademark. Without hesitation, he tossed it down to Sarah. She caught it with both hands, pressing it against her chest as if it contained life itself. "This is for you," Michael said through the microphone. "Never stop believing in miracles." But the story doesn't end there. What Michael did next shocked everyone, including his own band. He stood up, wiped his tears, and made an announcement that would echo through concert history. "Tonight, we're not just performing. We're healing together. Everyone who's fighting something, everyone who's in pain, this song is for you." The arena erupted. Not in screams or cheers, but in something deeper. A collective exhale. A shared moment of recognition that they were witnessing something beyond entertainment. Michael began, "Heal the World," for the third time, and now the entire arena sang with him. But it wasn't the polished version from the album. It was raw, emotional, filled with the kind of pain and hope that only comes from lived experience. Backup singer Sita Garrett later described it as the most powerful performance I ever witnessed. Michael wasn't performing anymore. He was channeling something divine. As the song reached its crescendo, something extraordinary happened in the crowd. Strangers began holding hands. People were crying openly. A businessman hugged a teenager. An elderly woman comforted a young mother. Michael had transformed a concert into a healing ceremony. But here's the detail that will break your heart and show you the true measure of Michael Jackson's character. After the show, Michael didn't go back to his hotel. He didn't celebrate another successful performance. Instead, he asked security to arrange a private meeting with Sarah and her family backstage. What happened in that meeting was kept private for years, until Sarah's mother, in a 2009 interview after Michael's death, revealed the truth. Michael spent 3 hours with Sarah and her family. He didn't talk about music or fame. He talked about courage. About fighting. About never giving up hope. He prayed with them. He cried with them. And before they left, he gave Sarah something that would change her life forever. It wasn't another piece of memorabilia. It was a promise. "You're going to beat this," he told her, holding her hands. "And when you do, I want you to help other kids who are fighting what you're fighting. Will you promise me that?" Sarah promised. 6 months later, Sarah's cancer went into complete remission. The doctors called it a medical miracle. Sarah's family knew it was something more. Share this story and subscribe, because what Michael Jackson's legacy became is the most beautiful part of this story. True to her word, Sarah Mueller dedicated her life to pediatric cancer research. She became a doctor specializing in childhood leukemia. Over the past 25 years, she has saved the lives of hundreds of children fighting the same battle she once faced. In her office at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, mounted in a frame above her desk, is Michael Jackson's white sequined glove, the same one he gave her that night in Munich. Below it, a small plaque reads, "Heal the world, one child at a time." But the impact of that night extended far beyond Sarah's story. Michael Jackson never performed "Heal the World" the same way again. From that night forward, he would always scan the audience during that song, looking for someone who needed healing, someone who needed hope. Concert footage from the remainder of the history tour shows him regularly stopping performances to connect with individual fans, transforming each show from a concert into a communion. His band members noticed the change immediately. "Michael became different after Munich," recalled keyboardist Brad Buxer. "He stopped worrying about hitting every mark perfectly and started focusing on reaching every heart genuinely." The glove that Michael gave to Sarah became legendary in its own right. Sarah's mother later revealed that Michael had worn that specific glove during the Smooth Criminal performance at Wembley Stadium in 1988, one of his most iconic performances. He had carried it with him ever since, planning to auction it for charity. Instead, in a moment of pure instinct, he gave it to a dying child who needed a miracle. The ripple effects of that single moment of compassion continued long after Michael's death. Sarah, now Dr. Sarah Mueller-Williams, established the Heal the World Foundation in 2010, providing free treatment for children with cancer whose families cannot afford medical care. To date, her foundation has saved over 2,000 young lives. Michael Jackson never spoke publicly about that night in Munich. He never used it for publicity or promotion. In his own words, captured in a rare interview with Oprah Winfrey in 1998, "Some moments are too sacred for the spotlight. They belong to the people who lived them. But those who were there, those who witnessed a global superstar become purely, completely human in service of a suffering child, they never forgot." Concert reviewers struggled to describe what they had witnessed. "It wasn't a performance," wrote Rolling Stone's correspondent. "It was a revelation. In that moment, Michael Jackson wasn't the king of pop. He was something more important. He was a healer." The technical crew, initially frustrated by the deviation from the carefully planned show, later described it as the most meaningful moment of their careers. "We work hundreds of concerts," said lighting director Peter Morris. "But that night, we weren't lighting a show. We were lighting a miracle." Even the hardened security guards were moved. "I've worked with every major artist," said Chief Security Officer James Thompson. "But I've never seen someone stop their own show to save someone else's life. That's what Michael did that night." The Munich concert recording exists in the archives, but Michael Jackson's estate has never released the full footage of that moment. Some say it's because the audio quality suffered when Michael abandoned the wireless microphone system. Others believe it's because the moment was too personal, too sacred to commercialize. But bootleg recordings shared among fans tell the true story. You can hear the exact moment when Michael's voice changes from performer to healer. You can hear Sarah's small voice joining his in song. You can hear 80,000 people holding their breath as they witness something beyond entertainment. Most importantly, you can hear the sound of hope being born in the darkness. The white sequined glove still sits in Dr. Sarah Mueller-Williams' office, now 34 years old and still fighting to heal the world, one child at a time. She touches it every morning before starting her rounds, remembering the night when Michael Jackson proved that the most powerful medicine isn't always found in a prescription bottle. Sometimes it's found in a song, sung by someone who refuses to let another person suffer alone. That night in Munich, Michael Jackson sang through his pain, not the physical pain of exhaustion or stress, but the deeper pain of recognizing suffering and being unable to look away. And in choosing to embrace that pain rather than ignore it, he transformed not just one life, but thousands. Share this story if you believe in the power of human connection. Subscribe if you want to remember Michael Jackson not just as the king of pop, but as the man who stopped his own show to start someone else's healing. The impact of that Munich performance reverberates through the music industry to this day. Concert promoters and artists now regularly include compassion breaks in their show planning, inspired directly by Michael's spontaneous act of humanity. Major venues have established protocols for identifying audience members who might be struggling with serious illnesses, creating opportunities for artists to connect meaningfully during performances. Quincy Jones, Michael's longtime producer and collaborator, reflected on that night years later. "Michael taught us that stardom isn't about being untouchable. It's about being so in touch with humanity that you can't help but reach out." That night in Munich, he wasn't performing Michael Jackson the icon. He was being Michael Jackson the human being. The venue itself, the Olympiahalle in Munich, now displays a small commemorative plaque near the front row where Sarah sat that night. It reads simply, "In memory of the night music became medicine, July 4, 1997. Venue staff report that fans regularly visit that specific spot, many bringing their own stories of struggle and hope. Other artists began adopting similar approaches in their performances. Beyoncé, Justin Timberlake, and Alicia Keys have all cited Michael's Munich moment as inspiration for their own unscripted connections with fans during concerts. The music industry slowly began to understand that vulnerability on stage, rather than perfection, created the most lasting impact. Dr. Sarah Mueller-Williams still performs at medical conferences worldwide, sharing not just her research but her story of that transformative night. Michael showed me that healing isn't just about medicine, she tells young doctors. Sometimes it's about showing up completely present for another human being's pain. That night, he didn't cure my cancer, but he gave me the strength to cure it myself. The white sequined glove remains one of the most cherished items in her possession, but it's no longer just a memento. It has become a symbol of hope for the children in her cancer ward. She brings it with her during difficult conversations with young patients and their families, sharing Michael's message. Never stop believing in miracles. Because sometimes the greatest performance isn't about hitting every note perfectly. Sometimes it's about hitting every heart completely.